something was off. And that night, my friend was and woke up in the night and there was a glowing ball of light in my doorway. Made of water, yellow, white, translucent kind of thing. It didn't have form, but you could see through it kind of. It was like water. And I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I had no voice. It's like it froze me. The reason that astrology works is that it's even in ancient times, it's in the Bible. It's been around for many years. And so Pluto, the planet, has gone into Aquarius, which hasn't happened since the 1800s. And so it going into Aquarius is the birth of a technological revolution. So what we see now is, what do we see since January? AI's taken off. Even if people don't know astrology or believe it, your astrology is affecting you every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken Beautiful Me, stories of hope, gratitude, and resilience. This is our sacred space where we come together for soul deep healing. And today I am so fortunate to have as my guest, Carmen Turner Schott. Carmen is a best-selling author of 11 astrology books, a practicing clinical social worker, and astrologer with national and international clientele. The founder of Deep Soul Divers Astrology, she has worked as an astrologer with the survivors of trauma for over 28 years. The author of Sun Signs, Houses and Healing, Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, Phoenixes and Angels, The Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House, Fallen Angels and the Mysteries of the 8th Astrological House, Phoenix Rising. Turner Schott has presented astrology workshops for the Association of Research and Enlightenment. She is a faculty member and advisor for the Counseling Certificate Program for the Kepler College of Astrology. Welcome, Carmen. It is so lovely to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I love sharing with other listeners my passion and learning from each other. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you've talked about, I want to give our listeners an idea kind of your journey, and you've talked about your profound spiritual awakening in your youth. So a moment when you encountered, if I have this right, a glowing ball of light that catalyzed your journey into metaphysics and astrology. So I'm fascinated by this, and I really want to hear what that experience felt like to your younger self, and how those early encounters shaped both your childhood sense of self and then this lifelong spiritual path that you're on.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a small town in the Midwest. So Missouri, it was the Ozarks, was not raised to believe in anything supernatural or new age or or alternative. And I was just a normal kid that grew up, with my grandparents and my mom and dad in the same town since I was born. And as I got older, I really got into sports, and basketball was my thing. Specifically, I was a three-point shooter, so I love basketball. And I really think that all the shooting and practice of focusing on the rim is what opened up my spiritual abilities. I've analyzed this, try to figure out, why am I so different? Why did this happen to me? So I think it was just that focus, constant focus, concentration exercises, shooting thousands of baskets at the park every day when I was growing up, and then through high school. And so then in high school, I always was a little different. Even when I was little, my cousins would say that I would be playing with imaginary friends, and I would talk to people that weren't there, and they were a little bit creeped out, when I was little, and I don't remember any of that. But as I got older, I would dream things, and I would sleepwalk, and I would wake my parents up and say, I'm afraid, I had a bad dream. And they'd say, oh, it's just your imagination, go back to sleep. So I always was kind of different than anyone in my family. And I felt kind of alone, like no one understood me. They're not like me. And I remember thinking, I'm not from Earth. Like I remember feeling very different than everyone else. And so I always kind of kept to myself what I felt, because I didn't know what being empathic meant. I now I know I was an empath, I was intuitive, but no one used those words when I was growing up, and so they just said you're emotional, you're too emotional or whatever.
Mhm.
I would feel people's pain. I remember if someone was crying, I would cry. Everyone with problems would come to me for advice. And this was even in middle school, high school. I was taking people to the counselor to get them help, and people would share their problems with their family and home life with me, and I would try to get them help. And that's when I realized maybe I need to go into psychology. I took my first psychology class when I was a senior in high school. And that same year is the year that changed my life when I was a senior in high school. So I was like 16 years old. And I had a friend that had just stayed the night at my house the summer before my senior year, and we had been friends for a while, and I worked at a ballpark, and she had came to see me the next day and was talking to me about wanting to hang out with me more and maybe not hanging out with her friend group that she had been in and things like that. And I said, "Sure, you can hang out with me," because she was 2 years younger than me, so she would have been a sophomore when I was a senior. So it was right before school got ready to start, and I watched her from a distance, and it sounds very strange, but I knew something felt wrong. And, at the time, I'm 16, and I didn't know what intuition was or gut instinct, but I watched her playing catch with this boy in the field from the concession stand because I worked at a ballpark, and something was off. And that night, my friend was shot and killed. And I came into work at the ballparks the next day, and no one was there. And I thought, what's going on? There's supposed to be games. The little boy came up to me and said the games are canceled. Kiera, her name was Kiera, that she was shot and killed. And I just couldn't believe it. And I said, "No," I was in total shock. I had never had anyone close to me pass away, so I was very upset. I called my mom, she said, "Come home," and it was all over the paper and the news, and so what happened was that changed my life, and I had a lot of trauma from that. And I overcame that, but after that experience, I thought, I wanna be a counselor, and I was already kind of thinking about what I wanna do in college, so, that happened to start my senior year, playing basketball, doing what I'm doing, and one night, I came back from basketball game, and I always had to have my bed facing the door, and I always had to have the door open with the nightlight on so I could see out. I couldn't be in the pitch black dark. I couldn't do it. So, went to bed like normal, had a great night, and we won. It was a great game. Woke up in the night, and there was a glowing ball of light in my doorway, and it was about the size, bigger than a softball, and it was the way I describe it, it's just like it happened yesterday. It was like watery, made of water, yellow, white, translucent kind of thing. It didn't have form, but you could see through it kind of. It was like water. But it was yellow for sure, and it was glowing in my doorway, and I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I had no voice. It's like it froze me. And the only thing I could control was my mind. So I kept thinking, please don't have it come in my room. I kept praying over and over again. Please don't have it come in my room because at the time I'm 16, I'm scared to death because it's the unknown. Now I wish I would have got up or tried to get up and go to it, but I couldn't even get up. It had me frozen at first. But I just laid there forever till it's like it released me. And I had a voice finally, and I watched it. I screamed for my mother, and it comes down the hall and it comes right back in my doorway, but it never came in my room. And it's because I kept saying, "Don't come in," probably. But then my mother, I yelled, "Do you see it?" Because her room was right across from mine, very small house. And she said, "Yes." I said, "What is it?" "I don't know." And I said, then she started saying, "Maybe it's a lightning bug." I'm like, "No, it's huge." And she starts trying to rationalize. And we're yelling back and forth. She's like, "Maybe someone's shining a flashlight." I'm like, "No, it has form." And I'm yelling back and forth with my mother. She's like, "Just go back to sleep." And I'm like, so she didn't get up either. And my dad was gone with my brother on a fishing trip. So it was just her and I in the house. And I laid there terrified till I think I finally passed out. And it was there. And when I finally went to sleep, I woke up. And the morning, my mom said that was not a lightning bug. I don't know what that was. And so after that, I decided to start researching aliens and angels and spirit guides and got really deep into all these books. And I went into this little mystical bookstore in St. Louis, Missouri. And this was 1993. Okay. And I got a book about Virgo, and it explained my personality. And I thought, wow, how is this accurate? And I wanted to know more. So I really started getting into astrology. And that's because to me, it was psychological. It was a personality tool. And that's what I believe today, that it's a tool of self awareness, it's energy. And we all have a birth chart. We all have a sign, and it's our soul, it's our personality. And I do believe in it now. I live it, I teach it like it's my mission. But back then I didn't know what I was doing. And I studied, and I used to do charts by hand. Back then we didn't have computers. So I was looking up longitude, latitude, had rulers, drawn charts. And I had a friend that was also learning. We draw the planet symbols, had to memorize all the symbols because it's all a symbolic language. It took me a couple years to learn everything, memorize it. Then I started practicing when I was 19. When I was in college, I was going to be a social worker. I started doing charts for free, and I would just meet people at the bread company and analyze their chart, and they would cry. And they would say, "How did you know this?" I'm like, "It's your chart. It's science." It's not like going to a psychic and someone's, reading cards and making things up or what they feel. It's a science, and I'm just interpreting it and what the meanings are, the energies. And they would just, wow, they would say, "This really helped me. You need to charge." And back then I did it for fun, for free, just to practice. And I did that I started my business probably when I was 20, got my first website. My first, I used to call it the Astrological Self-Awareness Center. That was my first business name. And I was getting my master's in social work at the time, and I was doing both, going to school, working, and then doing charts. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's been my life. Like I literally live it. And my day-to-day life, I feel the energies. I can understand people's signs, the full moon, how it affects us, Mercury retrograde, all those things. I try to teach people the basics of it. And I think a lot of people have been interested in my career, because I used to work. Well, I didn't realize I was going to marry a military guy. So I ended up married right out of grad school. I got married to my husband, who's in the Air Force, and moved around with him for 20 years. So primarily, I worked with domestic violence and sexual assault survivors in the Air Force for over 25 years. So I've always done that and had a normal job, with the government. And then I had my side thing where I would do charts and write books for fun. And so that's what I've been doing until March this year, when I did a early retirement from the Air Force, and I've been full time. Now I'm teaching social work. I'm a professor now, and I'm still doing my passion, which is writing books and talking about how astrology is a tool of healing. And that's kind of my short story there, real long, but that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been doing. But
That's incredible. So talk to me a little bit about kind of the main, I know like this conversation could go on for hours about like the detail of astrology. But for somebody who is listening now, who knows nothing of astrology and has never explored that,
sure.
can we give us just a high level overview of the signs and what it means?
Yeah, so in astrology, a real simple way I explain it for people that don't know, because it gets confusing. And every time I'm on a podcast, people always say that I explain it so well that they finally understand what it's about. Because every podcast I'm on, they say that, and it's because I say the same little story. So I'm going to do the same thing I do on the others. So if you're on Earth at the moment, time, place of your birth, so all of us we know our birthday. Everyone really knows what their sun sign is, and that's based on your month and day and year. Okay. And so everyone born on August 26th is going to be a Virgo. My husband and I have the same birthday, but he's 5 years older, and he's born in a different state, different time. So his chart is completely different than mine, his mission, his personality, but we have that sun sign in common. So on that month, date, year, exact time of birth and place, if you look up at the sky when you're born, there's 12 constellations. Those are the signs. So 12 we call them sun signs, or 12 zodiac signs. They are in the sky right now. It's astronomy, okay? And we look up, and there they are. At the moment, time, place of birth, the 10 major planets, because that's what I'm going to focus on. We're not going to get into asteroids. The 10 major planets are going to be in one of those 12 star constellations at that moment, time, place of your birth, when you're looking up at the sky. And then what we do is we astrologers break the sky into 12 sections like a pie. And we take a picture of the sky and we put it on a piece of paper at the moment, time, place of your birth. That is what we call the map of your soul, because the energies and everything going on at that time in the sky, that energy of your essence, when your soul came into the physical, when your soul takes its first breath, that's the chart. And we take a pic. It's like taking a picture of the sky. That's what, when they say you cast a chart, it really isn't make it's you're not making it up. It's like you're taking a picture of the sky, and we put it on a wheel, and that wheel is all symbols. So every sign has symbols, and I'll go through all 12, and every sign is ruled by a planet, has a planetary ruler. And that's where it gets its personality traits from. And then each house is ruled by one of the signs. And it just goes in order. There's 12 houses, just like there's 12 signs. And so the easiest way to say it is, the reason that astrology works is that it's even in ancient times. It's in the Bible. It's been around for many, 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 many years. It was around before astronomy. Okay, astrology predates that. So what it is it's based on tropical astrology. It's based on the seasons of nature. So that's why it never changes. Tropical Western astrology is what we use. Now, there's different types of astrology. There's Vedic. I'm not going to get into that. They calculate things differently than we do, because tropical astrology, it works because it's based on ancient times and the seasons, how God created the heavens and the earth, and the seasons of the year. I mean, it's in the Bible. So Aries starts the spring. So it's the first sign of the zodiac. It rules the first house. It's when things start blooming, things start growing. And Aries is, the cardinal signs all start the seasons. That's another thing that's cool. And that because they like to get things started. So Aries starts the zodiac. Then the next sign is Taurus. It is the second house. It rules money, finance. Okay. The third sign is Gemini, communication. They're big into learning and communicating and being free and independent. And then you have Cancer, which is the mother, the nurturer. It rules the home. The fourth house is ruled by Cancer, home and family. Then you have Leo, the entertainer, the artist, self expression, children, having fun, pleasure. It rules the fifth house of creativity and self expression in children. Then you have Virgo, the sixth sign. It rules health, diet, routine, work, service to others, practicality, efficiency, okay, routine, order. Virgos love to help people, but they rule the sixth house of health, okay, and day to day routine. Then Libra is the polar opposite of Aries. And so it starts the fall, and it is the relationship sign. They rule the house of marriage and partnership. They rule peace, harmony, justice, fairness, equality. But they rule the seventh house, which is the house of marriage. So we would look at the seventh house in a birth chart to see what kind of partner you may attract, what kind of people you get into relationships with. Even business partnership is the seventh. Then we have the eighth sign, which is Scorpio. Scorpios are known to be intense. They're all about death, rebirth, transformation, healing, research, solving crimes, anything taboo, sex, death, all those things that no one wants to talk about is Scorpio energy. And that is why they rule the eighth house, which is the house of all those things: death, rebirth, inheritance, other people's resources, how we benefit from the good, our family, their money when they die, all these things like that. How we heal trauma. So a lot of my research in astrology is about trauma, and that's the eighth house. That's why I write books about it. People with planets there often have a traumatic event. I have that, and that's how I really got into astrology too, because of my friend and some other people I've lost as well, through tragic things. That's an eighth house thing. So when you have plants there, you might experience that. And then ninth house is Sagittarius. Sag is the ninth sign. They rule the ninth house in the wheel. It's far away foreign travel. It's higher education, law, history. It's freedom, adventure, exploration. People with planets there are a lot of Sag. They often like to travel or live in other countries, marry or have relationships with people from other countries. They speak different languages, or drawn to that, right? And then the 10th house is Capricorn. Capricorns are all about work, career, the public, achievement, goals. So that's where our career house is, where we shine at work, where people recognize us in our work that we do. And that's 10th house. And that's ruled by Capricorn. And they're known to have those traits: practical, hardworking, responsible, achievement focused, rising up the ladder. That's 10th house. Get out in the public eye. And then 11th house is Aquarius. They're the 11th sign. They rule friendship, groups, humanitarian efforts, humanitarian causes, hopes, wishes, and dreams, innovation, creativity too, because scientific innovation, thinking outside the box, being different, eccentric, that's Aquarian, shocking people, being non traditional. So Capricorn is all about tradition. Aquarius wants to break tradition. They want to question it. Okay, that's the difference. And then Pisces ends the zodiac. They're the 12th sign, and they are the spiritual sign. So they're the mystic, the artist, creative, want to help people. Into astrology, all these different things like this. A lot of them are, and very they lack boundaries between themselves and others. Pisces, they can be very idealistic, very trusting, overly, very kind and compassionate, but they have a hard time protecting themselves, so they can get taken advantage of. So they're learning to have boundaries, and they rule the 12th house, which is cosmic consciousness, finding a spiritual path, finding your oneness with God. I mean, it's these really deep, higher level things is 12th house. And that's why Pisces rules that house and are associated with that house. So that's an easy way. All 12 signs have certain personality traits because they have a planet that rules them, and they rule each of the 12 houses. And so when we take a picture of that sky when you're born, we need to know the time. And the reason is that the time of birth will change what house the planets are in. It won't change what sign the planets are in on that moment in the sky. When we take that picture, put on a piece of paper, it's not going to change. Very, very rarely is it going to change what sign the planets are in, unless. But we want to know the time because some planets move faster than others. So the moon sign is very important. You're more than just your sun sign. You're a lot. You're everything in your chart. But the moon is your emotional nature. It's how you react, how you love, how you find happiness, how you find comfort. The moon sign is just as crucial as knowing your sun sign. And the moon changes signs every 2 to 3 days in the sky. So twins can even be on that cusp there where the moon is just getting ready to change a new sign. And twins can look alike, have almost an identical chart, but they can have a different emotional nature, different moon sign. I've seen it. I've done twins charts. So you'll see that. Like they're just slightly a little bit different. One might be more serious emotionally, like more cold, and one's like a very affectionate and kind because they can have a different moon sign. But sometimes they have an identical chart. And what people ask me, well, how is that right? And I said, well, because they have a soul. Even if you have an identical chart of someone else in the world, say you're born the same time, place, everything, same day, your soul brings into this lifetime different memories, different experiences. You're a different soul than another person. So you're going to be different, even though you're learning almost identical lessons, which is your birth chart. So that's how I explain the twin thing to skeptics, when they ask me. But I always say, the quickest way to get a skeptic not to be a skeptic is for me to do their birth chart. And I've had a lot of skeptics, and they're like, Carmen, I don't believe in this. It's a bunch of baloney. And then I'll do their chart, and they're like, okay, this was weird. They're like, I can't explain how you knew this, and I'm like, it's your soul. It's the map of our soul. So that natal chart it's called a natal chart, birth chart, is that picture of the sky at that moment, time, place. And that time is important because it'll show us what house the planets are in, which is where the energy expresses into the world in your life. So, like, we really can't do a very deep and accurate 1% accurate, personality discussion with someone and about their energy if we don't have their time. And I just had this happen 2 weeks ago. I was traveling for work, and one of the other professors there, I did a presentation on astrology as a tool of self awareness, and with social workers, and Carl Jung was a astrologer,
Oh,
and they didn't even, people don't know that, but he was, and he analyzed thousands of marital couples charts, and he would try to get insights from them, and he has letters he wrote to Sigmund Freud about his love of astrology. So he did astrology, but people don't always know. That's why, I love Carl Jung and all his work on dreams and things, but he was an astrologer. He knew it was a tool, and it was powerful, and it could validate your personality. He knew that, and that's how what I believe too. But the neat thing is that she didn't know her birth time, and when I meet with people, I'll kind of know if the time is off because I can feel their energy. Because when if you know if you have the birth time, that means the rising sign will be accurate. And what is the rising sign? It's our mask. It's the sign that starts the first house of the 12 of the wheel. We call it the sign that's on horizon in the early morning. The rising sign changes every 2 hours. So if we don't have the time right, how people perceive you and how you relate to the world, we won't have an accurate chart. If I can get someone's rising sign and we can get the birth time nailed down in between a 2 hour period, I can pretty much get a pretty accurate birth chart on someone that either doesn't know their time or their mom and dad said it's between 12 and 2. I don't remember. It's not on the birth certificate. That happens. And I told this lady, I said, listen, I can't really do a deep thing for you because you don't know your time. She says, well, they said it was 1:30 p.m. And I did that. And I said, this doesn't feel right. And then later on the day, I saw her and I said, I think I got your chart because I was trying to feel her energy when I first meet her. When you first meet someone, she said people think she's shy and kind of cold and not interested in them. That helps me because that'll show me, okay, her rising sign is probably air. That's what I was thinking. And then later, 2 days later, she emailed me and she found her birth time in a baby book.
oh
And I
my
was right. She was Libra rising air. And so then I got an accurate chart for her, and I emailed it to her and for fun. But yeah, I always kind of know. And I had a friend at work. She's like, "Yeah, my mom said 2:30 p.m." And I said, and I'd known her for 2 years. And I said, "This isn't your chart." She's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "No, there's no way because I know how accurate this is, and it will show in your life." And it wasn't right. And I said, "You need to make sure." She calls me back 2 days later. Oh my gosh, you're not gonna believe this. It was a.m., not p.m. I said, I knew. And you just and so and then when I do a chart for someone I don't know, I'll tell them if what I'm saying to you doesn't resonate, we don't have the right time. And then sometimes I figured it out that the time wasn't right, or they went and found out, oh, it's an hour off. So the time really matters. Now, for those that don't really know your time, if you were adopted, I also work with people to try to get an accurate chart. It's something we do called chart rectification, where we really just talk about your life story. Like I try to get to know you. It's like a deep counseling session on the events of your childhood, any allergies, relationship stuff, traumas, trying to really get a picture of what you've been through so we can try to figure out and get an accurate chart. But if we don't have a time, there's ways to do it. Astrologers call it chart rectification. It takes a little bit of time, research, but we have to get to know you and what you've experienced to really get an accurate chart. Usually, I've been able to do it based on how someone physically looks because that's your rising sign. And if we can get that rising sign, I'll say, send me a picture of your face. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I need to see how you look physically. And then I'll ask them, how do people say that they thought you were when they first met you, before they knew you? How do they judge you? By your appearance, by your first impression walking into the room. If we can get that, we can narrow it down, and I've been able to do that many times, hundreds of times for people. So it's fun. It's fun. But that's a 12 signs, 10 major planets, and 12 houses is what makes up the wheel. And yeah,
That is so incredible. I love the way that you just explained that and broke it down into bite-sized pieces so that it was understandable. And the history, talking about Carl Jung and Freud
yeah,
messaging back and forth, and him using that in his practice. That's incredible. Hey guys, Kelly here. I wanted to jump in and let you know that you can find out more about my work by visiting my website at kellybuckley.com, or you can find my books on Amazon. Okay, back to the episode. So you have said that astrology is a tool, not a blueprint for transformation, healing, and becoming more resilient. And that comment really struck me. So can you explain what you mean by that and how you help your clients
yeah.
use it as a valuable tool for their own personal transformation?
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I love about it is because it is energy. What astrology does is it tells you what your strengths are. It also can tell you what your weaknesses are. So for each sun sign, if we just look at the basic sun sign astrology, each sun sign heals in a different way. Each sun sign does self care in a very different way. Self care doesn't work the same for everyone, right? We know this. And I kind of started researching this with the signs, Aries, Taurus, Geminis, seeing how their strengths. So one of the strengths of Aries, for instance, is they are resilient. I would say they're probably one of the most resilient signs in the zodiac because they're ruled by Mars and because they're all about moving on, and they're impulsive. They don't like to be stuck in the past. They want to go, go, go. So when something happens traumatic to them, they heal quickly from it compared to other signs. So that's their strength, is their resilience, their tenacity, their determination, but their power, their anger is actually their strength because they're known to have a temper. Okay, Aries are, and they get passionate about things, and they're known to be quick when they get angry. It comes up real fast, but they get over it quick, which is a strength. They forgive and they move on. They don't hold grudges. They're blunt and straightforward and tell you what they think, and then they go. So I find that they heal by um, expressing what they feel and in a very intense way, and then they move forward, and they heal a little easily than other signs. And then Taurus, they don't like to let go. They love the past and they're connected to the past. So they avoid change. They don't like change unless it's baby steps. So Tauruses often hold on and feel like they're stuck in the mud. That's one of the weaknesses, is that they don't allow change in their life. So they can heal by allowing change in their life, and they like to control things. So they heal by accepting that things end, and they have to release people and emotions, and forgiving and letting go is big for them, and knowing that not everything is going to feel comfortable. So getting out of their comfort zone, because they like peace and harmony. They don't like drama. They don't want to feel tension or fighting or any of that stuff. They want to feel like they have security. And the thing about security is money and finance, Tauruses care about that because that makes them feel safe. But sometimes that keeps them stuck in doing something that they don't enjoy, and that their heart isn't in it. So they have to learn, they actually heal through letting things go and changing, allowing change in their life, right? And that's how Tauruses heal. Now, Geminis heal by communication. They have to communicate. If they are with a partner, or they're in a situation where they can't speak their what they think and feel and verbalize it or write, and they will feel, they'll get anxiety, they'll get restless, they'll get overthink, obsess. So they really have to talk. And if they can't talk, I tell them they heal through writing. Like, write it out, record your voice, burn the letter, whatever. If write a letter to someone that you forgive them, whatever they got to do if they can't physically talk to them. But they heal through communication and expressing themselves and being active, mentally active and learning and studying things. And that's how they heal. And then cancers are the nurturers, and they're good at helping other people, but they have to learn to take care and nurture themselves. So they can get balance in their emotions. They can feel they're ruled by the moon, so their emotions are always going up and down, right? Highs and lows. So they have to learn to have that balance, and they want security and comfort, and they want to take care of their family. They can be homebodies. So their biggest thing to heal is that it's okay to say no, and to take care of themselves. So they're learning. I say that they need to nurture their own self too, because if their cup is empty, they can't help other people. And yeah, and they need to be careful who they trust and protect their energy and things like that because they're very sensitive to environment. They feel everything. They're very intuitive, empathic, so they have to learn to protect themselves a little bit. Their energy because they can get drained from helping, just giving, and then they get depleted. And then Leo heals by having fun, doing something that they love to do, playing games, going to a concert, being in love, dating, romance, gambling, playing sports. They have to do something fun that brings them happiness because they want to shine. And sometimes if they get depressed, it's because they're not having fun. So children can also be very healing for Leo, having their own children or volunteering and helping children. But being around children makes them feel their inner child. They're like children at heart. They rule by the sun. They have to shine, and they got to be happy and lighthearted. That's what Leos do. But they're also leaders, and a lot of them are in positions of authority, which can be stressful for them. But they love to get they're generous, but they want to be recognized and they want to be respected. And so they have to learn to have fun and make time for fun in their life to heal. That's how they heal, and expressing their creative side. If they're not expressing their creative side, they can feel unhappy and depressed. And so that's a Leo thing. And then Virgo. Virgo is the servant. They overthink. I'm a Virgo. My daughter is a Virgo. My husband's a Virgo. And they worry, so they have to overcome their control. They can't. We have to learn that we can't control things. We can't worry about all this stuff and other people because we have no control of other people. And so we can only control ourselves. So Virgos need to get control of their thoughts. Like cognitive behavior, like thinking positive, letting go and getting out of their mind, getting into their body. So yoga, stretching, walking, anything that gets them out of their head is really good for Virgo because they're always thinking. They're ruled by Mercury. It's like Gemini. They're always in their head. And so, but they're Earth, so they need to get out in nature and get out and walk and things like that. So Virgos have to learn to let go, quit obsessing, quit overthinking everything and trusting and that whatever's meant to be will be, and having a little bit of that faith that things are going to work out, and think positive. So that's the thing with Virgo, thinking positive. That's how they heal. And also learning to say no because they take on a lot of stuff and they get burned out. They're always wanting to say yes to work. They're workaholics in a way, okay? And they got to learn that they don't just have to be working or saving people. It's okay not to be doing anything. They have a hard time not working because they feel like they're being lazy. So they have to learn to relax. That's big with Virgo. And then Libra. Libras care about relationships. Sometimes Libras, they get their identity through other people, through having a partner. So they have to learn that to accept themselves and love themselves without a partner. And they have to learn to speak up on what they believe and what they feel and think, and debate and advocate for their own rights and what they think, because they tend to be peacemakers. They get indecisive. They're the scales. So they don't want to make anyone mad. So they people please. So when they people please, they start getting angry and resentful because no one is really listening to them. So they have to learn to speak their mind and say, hey, I don't agree with that. And being okay with doing that. And they're not comfortable doing that. They'll just go with what other people say, even if they don't agree, because they don't want to get anyone upset. And so they have to learn to have conflict. They heal when they get comfortable with healthy conflict. Conflict's not all bad. They just have to learn that it's okay. and not everybody's gonna yell at them if they say they don't agree. So they got to get comfortable with being who they are, and being creative is big for them too. And a lot of them are artistic and creative. So having an outlet for their creative talents helps them heal as well. Whether it's music, painting, making something, whatever it is. But they love beauty and they love harmony. So anything that's what makes them heal is having that harmony and being around beautiful things or going to a beautiful place or things like that. And then Scorpio. Scorpio is like Aries. Scorpio is very resilient. Scorpio rules, trauma, the eighth house, rebirth, transformation. So Scorpios are really good at cutting ties, and they're good at, pushing things out that are hurting them. But the problem with that is that they have a hard time forgiving and letting and actually trusting people. So Scorpios, even if they love you, they don't fully trust you. This is something that I that they tell me that I've learned. They're always a part of them that thinks that they could get betrayed or hurt. They just always that's their that's their soul. And so they have to learn to trust people fully and be vulnerable. So they heal actually through letting themselves be vulnerable because they don't trust anyone and they have such a wall up emotionally. So everyone wants to tell Scorpios their secrets, but Scorpio doesn't tell you anything personal. They don't like telling their secrets. So everyone shares with them and dumps their trauma onto Scorpio, and they can take it. And they're healers. They help people heal. They're listeners. A lot of them becomes a therapist, psychologists, social workers. A lot of them are Scorpio, but they have to also learn to heal themselves, and that has to do with letting go and forgiving. A little bit similar to Taurus. And then Sagittarius is the free spirit, and they heal through travel. They heal through being outdoors in nature and exploring and doing something adventurous and feeling free, and learning new things and doing new things and traveling to new places and trying new foods. They like to be active. Sag, that's how they heal, and they're happy. They're the optimist of the zodiac. So they're when they start getting depressed, it's usually because they're not feeling free and they're not able to travel or explore and do the things they like to do. So I always tell them, plan a trip, go somewhere, and so that's a Sag thing, being on the go. And then Capricorn. Capricorn is the workaholic as well. They're work centered. They're achievement focused. They're super serious, and from a young age, Capricorns are always feeling like they're older than they are. So people always think they're older. They look older, they act older when they're little. And so as it's like they say Capricorns age backwards. So when they're little, they're like little adults. And then when they get older, they get more lighthearted fun and they have a very sarcastic sense of humor. They can, drop a sarcastic, kind of taboo joke in a very serious situation. Everybody starts laughing because they're born serious. They're born realistic, practical. So it's hard for them to believe in things that are new age, because it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. That's not practical. So they have to get out of, be more trusting, and they heal through um, feeling their emotions because they don't like to feel emotions because emotions are irrational. But they actually are very sensitive people. They're the water goat. They're half goat. They're half on land, half on water. So they have an emotional side to them, a sensitive side. They can be very kind, but they like to help their family. They like to provide for people. They like to make money. They like to have a career where they make money because money is security. They're an earth sign, but they also have to learn not to take things, not to take too much responsibility on and have some fun. That's how they heal. Go on vacation, get away from work. It's okay not to be working all the time. They get a lot of complaints from the family because they're learning to balance home life and career. That's their whole thing. And then Aquarius, they are the freedom lover. They're the non-traditional, eccentric rebel. They can't feel tied down, and they have to be able to be innovative. So they heal through learning and doing different things and exploring different beliefs and theories and research and helping people. They're very have a very easygoing, laid back. They actually heal through learning to not be so detached. They get a bad rap that they're detached from emotion. They're caring. They just don't cry with you like a Pisces or a Cancer and feel your pain. They're intellectual. They're air. So they want to help you, but they think, how can I help you in a logical, practical way? Okay, I can get you something to eat. I can help you get a job. They're good at social connections, connecting you to people that can help you, resources. They're humanitarians. They really are. But they need to feel free. And a lot of them like to be single, like they don't want to be tied down. So I feel like they heal when they can feel free. Even if they're in a relationship, they have to feel a sense of independence, or they rebel. They will rebel, and you can't. They need someone that lets them be themselves, their unique, eccentric, creative self. And then you have Pisces. Pisces heal. They're so compassionate and sensitive. They feel everybody's pain. They're the empaths, and they need to have strong boundaries. And that's how they heal, is by being able to tell people no, being able to give themselves the energy and love that they give to everyone else. And they heal by seeing people how they really are, not as they want to see them. They wear rose colored glasses, so they have to take the rose colored glasses off and see people how they really are, because they're very idealistic, and that can get them hurt. And they believe that everyone's nice and everyone's like them, but they learn in the world that's not how it is. So I call 12th house Pisces people fallen angels.
Oh,
And I call 8th house Scorpio people phoenixes, because they die and they reborn stronger out of the ashes. They're resilient. But fallen angels, they feel like they're not from this world. Pisces, 12th house people, they feel like they're so different than everyone else because they get hurt easily, their feelings, and it's because they got to have boundaries. So those are the 12 sun signs, and how I see they heal in a very basic, practical way as a counselor, using it as a tool. It's just a tool of personality, like we take Myers-Briggs, 4 lenses, True Colors. I'm trained in all those personality tools. It's the same as astrology. This is what I just briefed, because people don't realize, the elements. There's 4 elements: fire, air, earth, and water. And the water signs are emotional. They care about relationships. So the water signs are the blues and 4 lenses and True Colors, right? The air signs are intellectual, rational. They like research, they like numbers, they like logic. Okay, that's Libra, Aquarius, and the air signs, all of them, Gemini. And so fire is, Sag, Aries, and Leo. They like adventure, they like passion, romance, feelings, to get things started. They like their freedom. They wing it. They like their spontaneous, just like oranges in the 4 lenses, right? And then golds are the earth signs. The golds, they like structure. They like work. They like routine. That's Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. So it's the same energy that they came up with these color theories that they do with team building. And I saw this years ago, in the Air Force, we always got 4 lenses trained. I'm like, this is astrology. Like, this is just like astrology. And so I link that, when I train it, because it comes from Carl Jung's theories, the Myers-Briggs, all of that. And then the 12 archetypes came from his research on archetypes. They made 12 of them. The 12 archetypes are same traits as the 12 zodiac signs. It's pretty cool. And then if you go back into the Bible, ancient times, astrology is in the Bible. People don't know that. It's hidden within the Bible. If you don't know the symbols, you wouldn't know it. But like in the book of Revelation, the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac are mentioned. And if you go in Catholic churches, I've been in churches all over the world. I lived in Germany twice with my husband. And in all these churches, you see the bull, which is Taurus, and then in the church and across from the bull, you see the eagle, which is the ancient symbol of Scorpio. It used to be the eagle. Yes, and no, and a lot of people don't know that. And the fixed signs of the zodiac. And then guess what else? A lion. Leo, and opposing the lion head is a man, a water bear, Aquarius. But they're in churches all over the world. Why? Because there's more to astrology than we know. And even in the St. Louis Cathedral here, beautiful church of gold domes here in St. Louis, I always take people. The fixed signs are in the church in the St. Louis Cathedral where I'm from. So I thought it was really cool. You start seeing astrology hidden in the world. So there, if you ever in Washington D.C., there's I think 28 zodiacs hidden in Washington D.C. in buildings and statues all over the city because the founders were astrologers. They were masons, and people don't always know this. So there's a book. It's called DC Zodiacs. There's a book out there about it. I can't remember the author's name, but if you Google zodiac symbols in Washington D.C., it'll show you the Library of Congress on the floor, on the ceilings. You'll see the 12 signs. It's everywhere. So there's more to it than I think what we were told is my point. And but yeah, the in astrology, the 12 sons of Jacob, their personality traits are associated with the 12 zodiac signs. They have very similar personality traits of each sign, Aries, Taurus, yeah. And so the 12, then the 12 disciples, they have their personality traits. And there might be a 13th disciple, Mary Magdalene. And then they talked about, there might be a 13th sign. There's a big thing about that. I go by traditional, tropical astrology, but, they're finding asteroids. They're finding, like Chiron is a big asteroid that we use. And I do use that in astrology. It's called the wounded healer. And it's kind of like Pluto. It's where we heal our wounds and where we become a healer with other people that went through something similar like we went through. So I look at that in someone's chart and look at where's Chiron, and we have what's called a Chiron return, which is the midlife crisis. It happens around age 50. And when it returns to where it was in your birth chart, it brings up a lot of things to be healed. And I'm going through that right now because I just turned 50 in August. So I'm in my Chiron return. So I'm feeling that, wow, this is affecting me. And I've read books about it, about Chiron, but I'm living it right now. So I know there's something to it because I'm experiencing it. And that's how I used to be. I used to say, if I see it, I'll believe it. I used to always say that. And then I saw that glowing orb, and then I've saw some other things too that I haven't shared. But so I believe because I've experienced something. It's like once you experience something and see how accurate it is, like astrology and how it helps people, whatever tool you're using, like some people, I'm a certified trauma therapist. There's certain tools we use like EMDR or the Havening technique, which is something that's really simple and there's a lot of research on it. It's just three basic touches that you do on your body that help tell the amygdala you're safe. I got trained in that. We train victim advocates on that. And all these are tools that you can take out of your toolbox to help people, whether you're a social worker or an astrologer, an energy healer, or a teacher, whatever you're doing. There's all these tools that we can use to help people, and I kind of believe that you need to learn about a lot of different things, not just traditional ways of healing, because some traditional things don't work on everyone. That's the
Right.
thing, you
Right.
know.
It's fascinating for me, and I have a feeling that our listeners were doing the same thing as I was in my mind. I was like, oh, Capricorn, yeah. So I was, as you were going through it, I was relating it to people in my family and friend group, and I was like, oh, yes, that is dead on. That
Yeah, you
is
can see their patterns. And like when I did my it's kind of neat. I got this new job, but I went to a social work conference in Kentucky, and they wanted me to present on what I do, and I took my books, so everybody got one of my sun sign books. But I started talk. I had an hour, and I looked around the room. I said, "Okay, who's?" Started telling about Aries. Who's an Aries in here? Is it accurate? They're like, and they're laughing and then they're giggling and they're all at the table. And I'm like, who's Pisces? And then I'm like, oh, so we had some fun, and everybody there said it is their personality. So and I did some research. I used some data of, how many, there was a study that they did in 2024, how many people believe in astrology. How many Harris poll is what it was called. How many people believe that they fit their sun sign traits? It's like 80%, 65%. But most people in the world, in the US, let's say US, they know their sun sign. Why is that? They know they're Virgo, they know they're Taurus. I mean, it is mainstream now. I mean, when I was growing up, no one knew astrology. It was like, you're weird, when I was doing it. But now it's like TikTok. There's TikTok astrology. There's people using AI, which I always caution people because I tested AI out on astrology and it was wrong. I said, "Oh wow," because you wouldn't know AI could be wrong, and so I asked AI, I already knew what the dates were, but I'm like, "What are the dates of the eclipses for whatever?" And it gave me the wrong dates, and I'm like, I said, "That's not accurate." It came back, "Oh, sorry, you're right. That's not. This is the accurate information." So, guys, be careful with AI if you're trying to get it to analyze your birth chart, things like that. It's better to have a real person. But I tell people that because that's becoming a thing, AI, and that's astrology too. Because that's another thing of astrology we didn't even talk about. That's more than personality is the mundane astrology, which is how the planets in the sky right now affect us on Earth and affect politics and affect the world and affect political leaders, their charts. In the chart of the United States, the United States has a birth chart of when it was, founded. And so you look at all these things, and there's astrologers that specialize in that. And so the big thing that happened, which we can see it now, it's kind of crazy, guys. Um, in January, it's a 2025 January, Pluto has entered Aquarius for good. So it had been back and forth into Capricorn, Aquarius, and a funny thing is when it had been in Capricorn, it was in the fall, and I can't remember what year it was, and then it had moved into Aquarius for a little bit, it had retrograde or something, and all of a sudden, it was all over the news that there were things being shot out of the sky, orbs. Remember this? The balloon
Yes.
and all
Yeah.
that's because and that made sense because Aquarius rules technology, space travel, things in the sky, planes, air stuff, air travel. And so then we don't hear anything about it. It's like yeah, they shot something down over Canada. They never found it. What was it? And then they had a pilot, right? So this kind of weird, like out of the box, eccentric, weird stuff happening in the sky is Aquarius. And so Pluto, the planet, has gone into Aquarius, which hasn't happened since the 1800s. It's been a long time, and it's going to last for many, many, many years, decade, 20 years, I think. And so it going into Aquarius is the birth of a technological revolution. So what we see now is what do we see since January? AI's taken off. Therefore AI's kind of getting forced on us in a way where even where my husband works, they're making them do AI to write SOPs and stuff. They have to get an AI account for the and it's the government. I mean, AI is getting big, and even teachers are having to learn how to use AI to teach students to use it ethically. I mean, it's not going away. It's only becoming more and more. That is astrology. Basic happening right now is this Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. Uranus moved into Gemini. A lot of air, a lot of new ideas and technology and robots and traveling to Mars. All this stuff is going on. You see, they're going to use AI. I just saw on the news this week for cancer research for children. They're using paying all this money to get AI to research cancer research to get, yeah, for children. And the government's paying this money to do some kind of a AI thing. Yeah. So this is coming, and it's because it's in the sky right now. It's affecting life on Earth.
That is that is incredible. I'm thinking about just how quickly my husband and I had a conversation about this, how quickly AI exploded. Like, how some things take a little bit of time, but it seems like everywhere you look now,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's everywhere. How to use it, different options for it. And you do have to be careful because, as you experienced, not all information is accurate and correct. But what you're saying about the planets, that's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
the other one to know about, guys, is that Uranus went into Gemini this year. That has not happened since World War II. The last time it happened, so it is all these same themes are coming out, and there's, the wars, Ukraine, you see it playing out in our world. And you can look at Uranus has not been every time Uranus has been in Gemini, there's been major American Revolution. There's been these major battles, wars, things like that. So that's kind of going on right now again. So it's kind of it's science. It's universe's plan, what energy, whatever you want to call it, of things that are destined to happen. So you can kind of see it's not that we follow the stars, it's that God and the universe was created, um, and it affects us. The full moon affects the tides of the ocean. Of course, the moon affects our emotion. We're made of water. I mean, if it's affecting the tides, it's affecting our emotions. So that's why the full moon has been researched, that it does. There's more car accidents, more domestic disputes, more people in the ER. The cops are busiest. And when I was a social worker, more teens are running away on the weekends of the full moon, and I have to go to the police station than any time ever. And there's research on that, and it's because it affects us. So of course what's going up there affects us. Now, can I explain it all? No, because I didn't create it, but it's energy. This is why I say in my new book, your astrological energy, that everything's energy. And this is my book.
that is your book, and I just have one thing to say to what you were just talking about. I was an emergency room nurse, and I can give testimony to it is true. The
Yes.
full moon in the emergency department, everybody, I mean, nurses joked about it. Full moon.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, we knew
Yeah.
we knew that we were going to have a full emergency room, and
Yes.
there's going to be lots of babies born, and it was going to be
Yes.
a very busy time. It was
Absolutely.
just an accepted thing that we
Yeah.
just kind of giggled about,
I know.
without really understanding the detail of it. But yeah, it's a true thing.
You were living astrology. We
I
even if people don't know astrology or believe it, your astrology is affecting you every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I could talk to you for another 2 hours. I just feel like we just scratched the
I
surface. You're
can
going to have
come back. Hey, I'll come back if you want
to.
me to.
But before we finish with our time, I want you to show the book, and I want you to tell our audience again how they can get in touch with you and how they
Sure.
can read that book.
Sure. So my newest book, Your Astrological Energy, it is out for order now. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, online. Would love for you to grab a copy. You can grab this book, and you don't need to know much about astrology at all. You will. It's a basic guide. I write very basic, where you will learn about each sign, how to harness their energy, their strengths, their keywords. Um, every 12 sign, the planets in each sign, the planets in the houses. And, you can do a free birth wheel on astro.com, or you can email me through my website, carmenturnerschott.com, and I can send you your birth wheel if you get my book, and that way you know how to look up all your placements. And I also am on Instagram, Carmen Turner Schott author, and Facebook, Deep Soul Divers Astrology with Carmen Turner Schott. I have a YouTube channel, Carmen Turner Schott, and love for you to follow me. I have an email newsletter. You can download a free 12th or 8th house gift on my website if you have planets in the 12th and 8th, or a lot of Pisces, Scorpio. You would like that. It's a little journal, and love for you to look at my books. I have the sun signs houses in healing and moon signs houses in healing, which are very basic books for beginners to learn. And then your astrological energy, my newest one, is really in depth, and it's about how to harness the energy of all 12 signs, because we have all 12 signs in our birth wheel somewhere. We have all the energies of all 12 signs in our life somewhere. and that affects us. So we can tap in to those energies. It doesn't mean you have to have planets in a house or sign. There's going to be a sign somewhere on that wheel, and so we are affected by all 12 signs. So if you want to learn to be more like, hey, I want to be a Scorpio, or tap into that energy, you absolutely can look at the Scorpio chapter in my book and learn how to harness that Scorpio energy, and Pisces, or whatever you want to master, or understand your friends, your family, your kids, your wife's husband, or your daughter's husband. Try to figure out, I want to figure these people out, right? And so it helps us understand ourselves and others better. That's the goal, is to understand other
which
people.
is ultimately that's our human journey right there.
Yeah, yes, makes it
We have
easy.
to, it
Yeah,
does. And the more that we can learn how to understand each other, the better this world will be.
absolutely.
Carmen, thank you so incredibly much. And you have to come back. Make the promise with me that
I
you will
will.
come back and talk to us again.
I will.
This was fantastic, and I know that many people like me are going to want to read that book and figure out how we harness some of that
Yes.
energy from the planets. Thanks, Carmen,
Thank you.
and thank you guys for tuning in. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today on Broken Beautiful Me. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. Remember, every scar tells a story, and every story has the power to heal. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me, and it helps spread the message of hope and resilience to more people like us. Don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends and family. Together, we can create a community of strength and beauty in our brokenness. Until next time, stay strong, stay beautiful, and keep shining.